What is your most traumatic experience with a teacher? I was bullied really bad. Kids kept drawing awful ugly photos and leaving them on my desk with profanity towards my appearance. I had enough one day after dealing with a lot of abuse at home and the bullying at school, and when I saw another broke down crying and brought it to my teacher. She just grabbed it, looked and asked if I wanted it back. Did nothing to help, wouldn't listen to me about the constant bullying, and did absolutely nothing. I was in 7th grade and still remember it to this day. Edit, thanks for Silver Friend. Also thank to all who wished me well. Unfortunately no, I won't be doing anything towards the teacher. It was 12 years ago. I wish she learned better, but it was a small town school, and as sad as it is, that's just the way it was. I hope I can be a better teacher when I'm finished school. I'm so sorry. Fuck that teacher and fuck those bullies. Didn't traumatize me personally, but I had a first-year lecturer in classics who went out of his way to terrorize the class. His first words to us were, "I suspect as many as half of you cannot read." He then administered a test, which 2/3 of the class failed. He was not shy about voicing his rather gleeful displeasure. I did well enough to avoid his wrath, and, annoyingly, get singled out for praise. He would routinely throw questions at students who weren't paying rigorous attention, in a 3-hour lecture on Friday morning, and then berate them for not knowing the answers. His comments on papers were beyond trenchant. "Are you illiterate? Do you imagine this makes sense? This is childish," etc. The unfortunate part is that he was a superb classicist. A close second was a novelist-turned-writing professor who hurled a girl's manuscript out of his office door, nearly hitting me in the hall, as he shouted, "This is not writing." She came out to pick up her magnus opus moments later, weeping. Great writer, self-confessed shit teacher. I honestly don't understand why some people are so mean. What novel did the second dude write, if I can ask? I'm 65, and I still remember when I was 6 and the nun told me to wash my desk and then wring out the sponge, and when I squeezed it instead of twisting it, told the whole class that my mother was a bad mother because she had not taught me correctly. I knew if I protested that my mom was a good mom I would be punished. It still bothers me that I didn't stand up for her. Why did that nun have to put me in that position? Goddamn it. As if nuns know a damn thing about motherhood. What a cunt. Mine is more of a light-hearted traumatic. In 4th grade I collected Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I had gotten the, at the time, new 3 Egyptian god cards. Well, I was caught playing with them during class and my teacher took them from me and threw them out. I was devastated after all the packs opened and cards traded to acquire them. I never forgave her. Did they ever end up being worth anything before all the reprint boxes? I would have loved to see her face if she found out they were worth some coin. Edit, the teacher was an older Southern lady in her 60s, so she was definitely in that mindset that she had 100% say in whatever she did with our personal belongings. Pretty sure if corporal punishment was still allowed I would have gotten the paddle on several occasions. I wasn't the only one who lost cards that day. Buddy who sat next to me had his Black Magician of Black Chaos and Blue Eyes Ultimate taken from him. This is like when Weevil threw Yugi's Exodia cards into the ocean. This professor giving a pointless class in college. My phone accidentally rang because I was waiting for a medical call. I interrupted him because of that. I apologized and said sorry. The asshole said, "Sorry for your parents that pay your college fee, they're wasting money." Loud to everyone in the class. I had a huge urge to punch him but remained silent because I was changing career that semester and would not see him for another course anyway. He always got away with humiliating students with those types of comments for petty shit. Everyone hated that asshole. I pissed my pants in 7th grade because I was so terrified to ask my science teacher to go to the restroom. Luckily the bell rang shortly after and none of my fellow classmates knew. But I can remember later that year she brought up how she had made 2 kids piss their pants, as if she took pride in the fact that she terrified her students. Technically it was the vice principal, but the day my brother died, apparently he thought it would be a good idea to walk in on story time. The teacher was reading to the class, set me on his lap and tell me in front of everyone that my brother committed suicide. Dude, what a freak. I'm so sorry this happened to you. When I was in high school I got a lot of nosebleeds. Like a lot. So I got one in the middle of class and I asked the teacher for a tissue. She said she didn't have any, so I asked to go to the toilet to get one, then she said no. Soon I asked again when blood was dripping from my hands and she yelled at me for repeating myself, which is apparently bad. Soon a puddle of blood was on the table, then I got sent to isolation for disrupting the class. I was then suspended for acting inappropriate during class. She was then fired for putting my life at risk. I gotta say, when you get a nosebleed like that, you really see how much blood is inside of you. Edit. Thank you anonymous Redditor for a reward. Edit. For those saying I'm dramatic for saying putting my life at risk, it was the school that said it, not me. I didn't consider it risking my life. Fucking hell, I had exactly the same. I used to get nosebleeds in high school and most teachers were just cool about it. My English teacher even started keeping a tissue box in his classroom. But my history teacher was just a bitch about it. Like I'd raise my hand to be excused and he just ignored it until I just got up and left for the bathroom. And then the kicker, when I got back to class he'd make some sort of bitchy comment about people going out of class without asking permission. He was a really good and nice teacher outside of that, so it really confused me why he had that. But yeah, I ruined a couple of shirts with bloodstains because of that. Should have written an assignment with your blood then. Edit. Alright, fine, maybe he should have used something to dip into his blood. Used to love math and science, until I had a teacher in 6th grade who would bully, mock, and do everything in his power to embarrass me in front of the entire class. I lost all love I had for school after that class. Fuck you, Mr. Bright. He doesn't live up to his name, sadly. Yeah, no one is going to be taking Mr. Bright's side. So when I was in kindergarten I didn't make it to the bathroom in time and wet myself. Went to the nurse's office, got new clothes, but instead of panties I had to wear a pull-up. Not a big deal. I guess it was a school policy for kids my age, I don't really know. When I get back to my class my teacher loudly says, "Oh good, the baby is finally back," or something like that. She also knew about the policy and asked if I was wearing a diaper so every other student could hear. I was 5 and felt a ton of shame and humiliated. I started crying and trying to get out of school a lot because of it. My teacher often referred to me as a baby for the rest of the year. Also she would constantly ask if I needed to potty or if I was wearing a diaper, like I was a toddler or something. The horrifying thing is that you probably didn't have the social or verbal skills to explain this to your parents and understand it's something that could be stopped. What a horrible teacher. My 4th grade teacher had a reputation for making one boy in her class an unpopular scapegoat each year. Lucky me. In previous years I'd been just another kid in the playground, but within 2 months the other kids wouldn't play with me during recess. One day I refused to go outside for recess. She asked why, and I foolishly told her that the other kids didn't like me. When they came back in, she marched me to the front of the class and asked for a show of hands, who didn't like me. 4th grade kids, mostly, did what 4th grade kids do. I broke down that night and told my mom what had happened and what had been going on all along. She marched into school the next day, got a meeting that included the principal, and tore the teacher a new asshole. I was still stuck in that class, but the teacher moved on to a new victim. Funny thing how self-esteem influences academic performance. My school used to give us a Stanford Binet IQ test every year. My score dropped 10 points from 3rd to 4th grade, then rose 20 points in 5th grade when I had a nurturing teacher. If you are still alive, fuck you, Mrs. Erickson. For an Erickson, she should really try to understand Erickson's theory of development. That would have reminded her that accomplishing things and receiving praise helps students grow. One time I was on my period and I asked the teacher to go to the bathroom multiple times. She refused to let me go. Eventually I stained my uniform and the chair. I was so embarrassed that I started crying. When my mother found out, she made the school fire that motherfucker. Good going, Ma, glad she stood up for you. I had a religion teacher in high school named Mr. Nguyen, who was working on becoming a Jesuit priest and was a really cool guy. He always had a smile on his face and did his best to make class a fun experience for everyone. There was a kid in my class who was a really annoying smartass, but Mr. Nguyen was always really patient with him, until one day he pushed him too far. I forgot exactly what the kid said, but it definitely crossed the line. Mr. Nguyen slammed his fists on his desk and shouted, "Why can't you ever shut the fuck up?" He then picked up his stapler and chucked it at the kid, missing his head by a few inches and leaving a huge dent in the wall, and then stormed out into the hallway. Even though I wasn't the one that got the stapler chucked at him, that was still something crazy to experience. I had never seen a teacher blow up like that, and I definitely never expected it from him. Wow, what happened to the teacher? Were there any consequences for him? How was their relationship with the student afterwards? I'm not entirely sure if there were any consequences with him. He wasn't fired, but he did take a few days off. Honestly, it was just one of those things everyone kind of pretended didn't happen, and when he came back he was his cherry old self. That kid kept his mouth shut after that, or at least in that class. I had other classes with him and he was still a smartass with other teachers.